Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It's good to see you here. I think many people on this panel understand the contribution that North Dakota is making to this entire industry. In fact, the New York Times, I think, called us the Silicon Valley of unmanned systems because we have that perfect marriage of an air base that has a number of these systems based out of that air base, a university that basically is one of the great aviation universities in the country, and a community that is wholly embracing and supporting, along with our extended use lease, building out these technologies. So this is a very important industry potential for the state of North Dakota. But we also know how important it can be to precision agriculture, how important it can be to monitoring infrastructure, whether it's a pipeline leak or whether it is a power line failure. So we see these uses in only that big of a lens. But I want to confirm what Mr. Dorado said about Canada. I recently met with a researcher from the UND. She was researching wildlife, could have done it in North Dakota, ended up going to Canada because she was using unmanned aircraft to do the monitoring, and it was much easier to get the permissions and the authorizations in Canada. And so we need to remember that it's not just building out this technology of the platform, but we're also losing the innovation of the utilization of this platform for all of these other uses. And so we've got to catch up. With that said, there's been a lot of focus today on safety, which obviously has to be job one. I asked what FAA's resistance is. Why do we wait and wait and wait for integration? And I think that no one wants to be the person who authorizes something that leads to a catastrophe. And so there's a natural pulling back or inability to kind of think about it more broadly. But I want to talk about another challenge with this technology, and that's privacy. We had the very high-profile case of somebody who shot down a remotely piloted aircraft or an unmanned aircraft. Obviously, I think that if they shot it down, it probably was flying lower than what the person who owned it was saying it was flying. But we've got to not only catch up in terms of the regulatory world, but the legal world in terms of who owns the airspace, what is an appropriate distance for this aircraft, and how do we make the world comfortable, and certainly in the United States, my farmers and ranchers comfortable with this utilization. Where do you see that? I guess I would ask Mr. Dorado, where do you see the privacy implications evolving to the point where this technology will be more accepted?
Well, Senator, I think that the privacy issues are different in degree than the privacy issues we've seen in the past, but they're not different in kind. So there were privacy concerns when cameras first became available. There's a famous law review article in 1890 from the Harvard Law Review on the right to privacy and fear-mongering about cameras, and now we all have cameras, and we somehow get along. But it is an important. Privacy is an important issue, and I think it will be resolved through court cases. The Supreme Court in 1946 issued a very important ruling when regular aviation was taking off, establishing the property rights
to airspace.
To airspace, saying that you could not interfere with the use of a property. So I think that applying that same precedent from 1946, which is very flexible to the modern world, as long as you're not interfering with a person's use of their property, then you're not interfering, and that could be interpreted to include privacy harms as well. That already exist under the law.
I think we're going to have a really hard time with that kind of vague definition of what is airspace ownership. And obviously, if someone believes that they have a commercial right to privacy in terms of what they're growing, in terms of what they're raising, and someone thinks, no, I'm the USDA, and I'm going to fly I'm going to test what's happening on the ground, and I'm going to tell you what your crop looks like. That's a problem for a lot of ranchers and farmers. And so what I'm suggesting is that we need to broaden the dialogue here beyond safety, and we need to talk about how we manage this new technology in that privacy space. And I think that's something that we haven't done all that well. And North Dakota, one of the things that we've been able to do is put together a committee that not only talks about when should you be able to basically deploy this resource, but what do you do with the data afterwards? And the for instance is we send one up to monitor traffic out of the hockey arena, which is a big deal. I know you guys don't believe that, but it is a big deal. Monitor traffic out of the hockey arena, and then you don't need that information. So that information gets deleted out of the system and not stored. And so those are the challenging questions that are being asked in terms of data collection and in terms of information. And I think we need to have a broader discussion beyond safety about how this resource is used in America to protect the privacy rights of landowners, but also not irrationally restrict the utilization of the resource.